Greetings and welcome to Productive DeFi. So as you've learned, there are thousands of protocols out there when it comes to DeFi. So in this lesson, I wanted to give you some specific protocols and I wanted to walk through each one of these protocols. So that way you have a nice starting point of potential opportunities and protocols that you could start looking into using now instead of having to go through and do your own research and come up with your own lists. So let's go ahead and let's jump into it. So in this video, I'm just going to go through each protocol and give a brief summary of what they do. I won't necessarily be walking through the entire protocol and showing each one being used hands-on per se, but it should give you enough information to get an idea of what are some specific protocols you can use as your starting point in DeFi. And then as you've seen in the previous lesson, you have the tools available to you to branch out from these protocols and discover new ones once you've become more comfortable in DeFi. So let's go ahead and jump into it. The first protocol that I want to introduce you to is Lido. Now, Lido is interesting because it allows you to do liquidity staking, but a little bit differently than has traditionally been done in DeFi. So in DeFi, traditionally when you stake an asset into Ethereum or Polygon, those assets are locked up for some time, and then you really have no way to access your staked liquidity. So it pretty much gets tied up in these protocols, and it can be tied up for a very long time, potentially indefinitely, depending on which protocol you're staking in. So what Lido's done is they basically made a way for you to stake your assets, but then what they do is they give you another token. So here you can see the ST-ETH. So it's basically staked ETH. So basically you would stake your ETH and they will give you this ST-ETH token and it would show up in your MetaMask wallet. And then this token, the ST-ETH, you're then able to transact this coin instead of the ETH that you staked. So it gives you a way to benefit from staking and earn the rewards on staking your crypto, but it also gives you a token that you can use to be a little bit more liquid. So this creates a unique opportunity where your staked assets are still liquid, which is something that was not traditionally possible. And then Lido benefits because when you transact this staked ETH, they basically generate a fee from it, so they benefit as well. So this is a unique opportunity where you can benefit from traditional staking if you want to go a little bit of a safer route and just stake your assets, but then still have the power and flexibility to be liquid with your staked assets, which is something that has not been possible really before Lido. So Lido has a unique way of staking your assets. So Lido has become a very popular opportunity in DeFi for staking assets. And as I'm sure you've seen before in our previous lessons, we use SushiSwap. So SushiSwap is an opportunity where you can swap assets and also join into pools. But there are alternatives to SushiSwap. One popular one that has become more popular as of the making time of this video is stargate.finance. Stargate.finance also allows you to transfer assets around in a DEX as well as pool them and do farming and stake opportunities. So stargate.finance has become a very popular protocol, and this could be a place that you could look for higher yields in addition to SushiSwap and other similar solutions. And then there is curve.fi, which primarily focuses on stablecoins and assets that are very stable, such as wrapped ETH and wrapped Bitcoin. And if you ever find yourself needing to transact one stablecoin for another, highly consider using Curve as your first opportunity for trying to exchange assets because they generally have some of the lowest fees available between swapping assets. And additionally, if you have stable coins that you'd like to lend out, they typically have some of the better yields when it comes to lending out stable coins as well. And here's something cool. We recently just talked about stake ETH, and you can see here that this stake ETH can also be put into a pool and used to generate revenue as well. So this is very interesting. So you could use the lido.fi to stake some of your ETH and then get the staked ETH asset. And then as you earn 3.6 APR on your staked ETH, you could then take your staked ETH asset and then put that into a pool and generate even more revenue from the fees, another 2%, essentially getting 5% total on your ETH, which is really fascinating. As you can see, there are some very unique possibilities and strategies you could use in DeFi to generate higher yields. So whenever you're thinking of stablecoins or assets that are very stable, consider looking into Curve and potentially exploring some of the pools that they have available and see what their base APR, and then they also offer rewards and incentives as well. And you can see they also have opportunities where you can put baskets together. So we can use 4 different tokens here, and we might be able to generate a higher APY. For example, here's one that's offering 10%, and it's just the DAI stablecoin, USDC stablecoin, and USDT stablecoin. So 3 stablecoins, and you're able to earn about 10% yield. And you can see there's quite a bit of total value locked here. So potentially a very nice opportunity. Next, we have GMX, which is an opportunity to trade assets. If we come over to their trade tab, you can see that we can locate pairs of cryptocurrency that we can trade on. And they also offer leverage opportunities. So this could be very risky if you use too much leverage, obviously. But if you're somebody that's a trader and you like to trade assets directly, This could be your forte. I'm not necessarily into trading assets like this, but I know a lot of people are, and it can be a very lucrative opportunity. I know that a lot of people like to day trade and do other things. Of course, not financial advice by any means, and again, not something that I'm personally interested in, but you never know. These can be very lucrative. Of course, you've seen CoinGecko as well as CoinMarketCap, both very good opportunities to explore the market. Another really popular protocol is beefy.finance, which allows you to do multi-chain yield optimizing. So basically, they look across multiple chains and they try to take your assets and generate you a higher yield by doing some yield aggregation. So as you can see, beefy.finance tries to find you higher APYs by using multiple different chains. So beefy.finance makes it a little bit easier to kind of automate your investing process when it comes to locating higher yields, and they make it easier to manage your DeFi portfolio. So beefy.finance is a very popular protocol that people have been using to try to locate the higher yielding opportunities across multiple different chains and make all this information easily accessible to investors in DeFi. They also have this nice little safety section here to try to give you their own indicator whether or not they believe that a pool is safe. Of course, I'd be hesitant to trust anything that says it's safe just because it has a couple green dashes here. I would still do my personal research. But on the flip side, if I was to see something red here, I might reconsider it. Similar to beefy.finance is exponential.fi. Exponential.fi makes it easier to locate high yield opportunities on particular blockchains and altcoins. And basically you can deposit your funds and just kind of let them do their job. So if we deposit this pool of assets that is here, then exponential.fi will take care of aggregating all of our investments to earn us a 29.67% return on our investment. So if you're somebody that doesn't like to necessarily have to go through and pick all the nitty-gritty opportunities that are out there in DeFi, you could consider using a combination of something like beefy.finance as well as exponential.fi, or other protocols that are similar to these to locate high-yielding opportunities that are mostly automated for you so you don't have to do as much work on your end. Another interesting site is rugdoc, which tries to focus mainly on safety, which I think is a really cool thing that we should definitely discuss and look into. Rugdoc will take a look at protocols and try to determine if there's any potential risk or a high risk of using the protocols. So say, for example, you found the website SpookyBase and you were a little bit unsure about it, you could check Rugdoc and see what it says about it. And if you were to locate that it has some high risk associated with it, maybe you start to realize that maybe SpookyBase is not a protocol you want to invest your funds into. Whereas here you're able to see that I'm searching up beefy.finance, which we looked at before, and we can see that it has a low risk associated with it. So rugdoc is able to help us analyze for safety concerns on the blockchain. You should probably still do your own research, but I think that rugdoc has a really nice community with a noble purpose of trying to keep everybody safe on DeFi protocols. Another site that can help you locate opportunities in DeFi is de.fi. So that's literally the site de.fi. They also have a nice site that allows you to explore yields and locate opportunities on the blockchain. So you can see here, they're offering us a potential opportunity to look into that could potentially yield 40% on some stablecoins. And finally, to close out this discussion, I'm going to talk briefly about DeFi management tools. So we have DeFi Saver, which is an all-in-one tool where they try to help you manage your assets and positions when it comes to DeFi, and zapper.xyz, which is a popular website that also allows you to manage your assets. So when you come to each one of these portfolio management tools and you connect your wallet, it will basically give you a breakdown of your entire portfolio and try to show you where all of your funds are located across the blockchain and in different DeFi protocols. So here you can see my wallet is connected and it shows you the value of each one of these assets here. And it shows me where I have my assets located in different protocols. So I can see Aave here and I can see the stablecoin that we invested before, as well as the debt associated with the wrapped ETH that we took out in a prior lesson. We can also see that liquidity pool that we set up on SushiSwap where we have that 50-50 split, and we can see how much funds we have invested in there. And it also tells us what the current APY is on those. And here you can see that DeFi Saver also has its own view into the account and portfolio, which gives a breakdown of our entire portfolio assets, but just with a different view and interface. However, I think it's still very important that you write down and keep track of all of your assets invested, because these portfolio management tools are not really 100% accurate. For example, here it says that SushiSwap has given us a 3.795 APY. If we were to come to that pool directly on SushiSwap, they claim that they're giving us a 4.77. So one of these is clearly outdated, and I would assume that the true pool is the one with the best number and the most accurate. And sometimes some of these portfolio management tools will not necessarily even be able to find some of the assets that you've purchased. So it's good to always write down your assets just in case they don't show up here so you don't forget about them or lose track of them over time. I definitely encourage you to keep things in writing just to be safe. I don't see an asset that's necessarily missing from our portfolio in this case, but I've definitely seen it in the past. So please make sure you write down where you're holding all of your funds and in which protocols. So that way you don't forget and you'll remember which protocols you're actively using. And of course, there's Uniswap as well, which is basically the king of dexes, and they have opportunities to set up liquidity pools as well. And of course, don't forget about Aave, which we talked about before, which is a great lend and borrow in protocol. And another similar lend and borrow in protocol, in addition to Aave, is compound.finance, where you can put up collateral and borrow as well, and is a very popular protocol in DeFi. All right, so I hope that you enjoyed this lesson. I'll go ahead and I'll leave a link of each one of the specific protocols that we covered in this lesson. Again, this is just to give you a starting point so you have an idea of what are some of the popular protocols that people are using now in DeFi, and that you can use as a starting point to help narrow your research on which protocols you want to use initially. Of course, nothing is financial advice. This is just for educational purposes, so please do your own due diligence and trade safely. All right, that's it for this lesson. I'll see you in the next one.